Introduction to Partitioning and File System. Data is stored on disk drives that are logically divided into partitions. A disk drive, which could be local disk drive or a network disk storage, it can be used to create partitions. In Windows system, you will see a C drive or a D drive. Similarly, in Linux, you will see boot partition, root partition, home partition, etc. And then the partitions are used to create the file system. If you're more familiar with Windows system, you may have seen FAT or NTFS file system. In Linux, you will see extended 2, 3, 4, or on your system, XFS is the default file system. Linux offers several tools for partitioning and managing disk storage. Commonly used tools include Parted, Gdisk, Fdisk, and Logical Volume Manager. Partitions created with one of these tools or by using a combination of these tools can coexist on a single disk. MBR stands for Master Boot Record, and GPT stands for GUID Partition Table. A disk can be divided into several partitions. This partition information is stored on the disk in a small region, which is used by the operating system at the boot time. This region on the disk is referred to as MBR on the BIOS-based systems or GPT on the UEFI-based systems. When your system boots, BIOS or UEFI scans your disks, detects MBR or GPT, identifies the boot disk, loads the bootloader in memory, reads partition table, and looks for the boot partition so your system can boot successfully. MBR or GPT stores partition information and the boot code. Let's talk about MBR. MBR is resident on the first sector of the boot disk. MBR's limitations led to the design and development of GPT type on newer systems. MBR can only create 4 primary partitions on a single disk, with the flexibility of using one of the 4 partitions as an extended partition to hold an arbitrary number of logical partitions in it. Another limitation is lack of addressing space beyond 2 TB due to its 32-bit nature and the sector size of 512 byte that it uses. MBR is non-redundant. Record it contains is not replicated. That's why your system becomes unbootable if it ever gets corrupted. Let's talk about GPT. With the increase in disks larger than 2 TB on x86 computers, a new 64-bit partitioning standard, GPT, was developed and integrated into UEFI firmware. This new standard introduced several enhancements: the construction of 128 partitions, use of disks much larger than 2 TB, use of 4 KB sector, redundant location for the storage of partition information. It also allows a BIOS-based system to boot from a GPT disk using bootloader program stored in a protective MBR at the first disk sector. Linux offers several tools for disk storage management. Parted is very important because Parted understands both MBR and GPT formats. Gdisk, also known as GPT Fdisk, it is designed to support the GPT format only and can be used instead of Parted. LVM stands for Logical Volume Manager. Because of its importance, it's covered in a separate lecture. Next is Fdisk. It does not understand GPT and cannot address space exceeding 2 TB, but it used to be the most commonly used tool. And this covers Introduction to Partitioning and File System. I hope you learned something useful in this lecture as well, and I will see you in the next one.